Thank you very much, Lydia. So good morning also from my side. I think there are lots of people from different sides of the world. I'm currently in Frankfurt, Germany. So hello once again from here. Guten Morgen. So I will be today kind of moderating the first panel discussion. The agenda is that I would like to first present speakers, and then I'll do some very short introduction, which will be the keynote for our discussion, just to put you in perspective of what we are going to discuss, and then we will spend some time together with very known speakers, professors, and we will discuss mainly about the changes in the business, which is influenced mainly through the pandemic, and also will be very much connected to the digital world. So let me just share my short presentation and try to present very, very shortly who are we going to talk to. Just hope everything is working from the technology point of view. So, okay, so I will be very, very short in presenting, but I would also give a word to our panelists today to add something if they would like. I think the list of achievements, written books, conference done, awards received from our panelists, it's a very, very long. And yeah, I will let them talk a bit about themselves in a few minutes. But shortly, we would have with us today Ken from Hong Kong, who is the award-winning brand communication strategist, author of many books, columnist, board advisor, and chairman of the Asia Martech Society. Also with us today, we have Professor Jaka Vadnjal, who is an independent business consultant and lecturer, president of the management board of the Lone Bank, GIA College Faculty of Entrepreneurship, and also he is having the title of the full professor. Also, last but not the least, very known professor Velimir Srice, which is having the experience of being the professor of management at Zagreb University, but also he was lecturing all around the world globally, from UCLA at Los Angeles to Chinese University Renmin, but also many, many other universities globally, consultants to many companies, and out of many, many books, I found information about the 70. So you heard about me, you know, so I'm basically international executive working international companies and having lots of experience at the digital customer experience, different international companies, and I joined the faculty of as a faculty of SSBM in this year. So trying to add some of my knowledge and experience also for the school. So maybe just a short hello from everybody who is the panelist. Maybe we could start with Professor Jaka Vadnjal, if you would just say a few words just for intro.
Yes, good morning to everybody. My name is Jaka, as Gavran kindly introduced me. I'm at the moment doing different things. One is very close cooperation with SSBM. As you may have seen from my short bio, I may have an interesting history, and I truly believe I can contribute to this discussion, which I'm looking forward to.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Vadnjal. Ken, how is in Hong Kong? Are you in Hong Kong or you're some other part of the world? And maybe you just give a short intro about yourself.
Oh, I am in Hong Kong, by the way. Hello, everyone. My name is Ken, and a big hello from Hong Kong, which is where I'm based. I'm currently the Assistant General Manager and Group Head of Marketing at BSC Group, in charge of the marketing of the engineering, design, construction, wholesale, and retail business, which include over 200 lifestyle brands. A very interesting job, by the way, doing some very interesting business, which I can talk a bit about later on if there is time. At a personal level, I enjoy reading a lot and have written 2 bestsellers named Life Hacks and Growth Hacks. Lastly, I'm also an associate professor in business and marketing technology and the chairman of the Asia Martech Society, Martech being marketing technologies, and it's a pleasure to be here today with all my fellow colleagues on this panel.
Thank you very much, Ken. I would really enjoy, listening also. So your side of story, your view on the what will be our discussion today. Last but not the least, Professor Velimir Srice. Maybe Professor, if you would like to introduce yourself very shortly. Lydia, do we have Professor Srice with us, or?
Just a second, please. Let me check. Yes, we do. We should. Oh.
Maybe there are some technical problems.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah, I suggest starting. What do you think?
I would start the presentation.
Yeah.
We would have a time to listen, Professor Srice, I'm sure, and I'm sure pretty much that he's a known professor.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so let me see again. Share screens. Screen share. So it just takes some time, but I'm almost there. Okay, so I was thinking how to make the opening of this session, and we will talk mainly about the digital, the changes into the business, changes into general environment, and we'll try to connect it to the COVID situation and how this influenced our lives, how it influenced the business around us. And then I got in possession this report, which is basically a European report for the e-commerce. E-commerce somehow is coming at the end, and it really reflects whatever is happening before in this channel of exchanging of the values. And I think would give us a good basis just as intro, just as the opening of this today discussion. So let's just look a few figures, which are showing, how the situation is changing, how the situation is developing the last years in terms of the European markets, European overview. So here in this report, you would see the results for the whole Europe. Later, you would see that the author of the report was also kind of splitting the Europe in the different regions from North Europe, South Europe, Eastern Europe. So you would be able to see also some figures, which will give the indication, how the figures are changing for the different part of the Europes. But if you look the first slide, you would see that, yeah, we have just a slowdown of the economy and GDP. Yeah, so the figures are showing kind of steady figures, flat figures in between 2019 and 2020. So this is the first on the left, like a chart which I'm showing. But then, as you could see, when we learned how to live with the pandemic, in 2021, we see the growth. The growth is picking up. So the companies learned, companies changed, and we would see through our discussion what our panelists are thinking. But I believe that also digital played here a very, very important role in this change. In terms of the people, not so important for this, in the moment, but we see that it's a pretty kind of stable situation with Europe. We don't have like any growth in terms of the number of the people or fall down. So it's pretty much kind of normal into the normal kind of curve. Now, internet users, which I think it's really, really interesting, so, and this is the first indicator that something is changing in digital, is that from 2019, when was 87% of the people which are accessing the internet, you see that there was a kind of jump onto 89% and then gets into the flat curve 2021. So this is the first indicator that the digital is becoming kind of critically important. So once again, here you could see the countries which are part of this kind of survey and report. It's like a 37 European countries. But on the chart, you could see that the number of the e-shoppers it's really growing, and again you could see the people which kind of started buying online from 2019, 2029. There is a jump. There is a growth of 5%, and then this still continue. This is the e-GDP. It's basically some kind of economy which has been driven by the e-commerce, and you see that there is again a growth from 2019 to 2020, and it's expected that it's growing for more than 4.6% in the year 2021 versus 2020. So obviously we see that yeah, the situation is still progressing, but driven and started during the pandemic. In terms of the turnover in e-commerce, as you could see here, it's Western Europe, which is dominating. 64% of e-commerce economy is coming from the Western Europe, and then Southern. Southern Europe, it's obviously Italy, Spain, Portugal. Western Europe, it's Germany, France, Austria, Switzerland, and so on. And then we see that 6% is coming from Eastern Europe, Central Europe 8%, and then Northern 6%. In the middle chart, it's really interesting because you see that the turnover and especially the growth, as you see Eastern Europe, for example, I'm taking the Eastern Europe as example, so it's still very low, but the growth level 36%. So obviously, it's catching up. Yeah, still not there, but moving at the positive direction. Similar, it's with the number of the internet users. As you could see in Western Europe, there is almost everybody who is using the internet, 95%. And then I'm again comparing just with the Eastern Europe, where it's 77%. And if you look at Eastern Europe, 41%, it's basically the people which are using internet for e-shopping, compared to Western Europe or Northern Europe, it was more than 86 and 82%. So still big discrepancy, still big, playground for some countries, to move on and improve the economy. Because I would like to say that, I believe that that level of the excellence in digital, in usage of the modern technology also defines, how the industry, how the general economy is developing. Again, interesting figures. You could see which markets are progressing. So e-commerce growth rate by countries 2020, and you see that some countries like Greece, the growth rate is 77%, Russia 41%. So they're still not there. So obviously, some countries which are at eGDP like UK 9.9%, they are having a slower growth, but they are really far away. They are advanced, and of course the growth rates. If you are running the world record on the 100 meters, it's not easy to improve that for 50 or 20%. You could maybe improve it for 1%. So, but those which are really low level, like very slow, they could progress, to some of the normal trends and figures of the developed countries. So, I mean, if you want to look, you could look at this chart, so just to see if you are from some of these countries, to see where your country is in terms of development and the growth. I think really interesting chart, which I found. It's showing the different industries, so, and where the people, customers were buying, so you see at the bottom, it's a clothes, so this is the highest rate for the people purchasing the products, so when they ask the people, okay, what were the products you bought in the previous 3 months, you could see that many people, more than 70%, around 70%, let's be precise, were buying the clothes. And this shows the trend, definitely trend which is not stopping at the moment. Furniture, it's really, I think, surprising, so that the people during the pandemic started buying the furniture online. And then there is a trend, obviously, about the deliveries. I think many of us are ordering the food, ordering from the restaurants. People are not going to the restaurants. So the whole, this logistic distribution industry is also showing significant growth. And we have many other products, obviously, but I was just pointing out on these two industries. And during our panel, I think I'm going to ask our panelists a bit to comment, to see what are the kind of the reasons and why the customers are and why the industries are changing their business models and basically currently living through the digital business sales of their products. I already mentioned, so the distribution significantly changed with the COVID and with the digital transformation. So obviously there are many customers which are basically buying through the web, buying through the e-commerce platforms, but then just picking up the goods at the certain pickup points, or they're collecting it in the store. Here in Germany, I know the places where you could basically buy the things at some of the grocery shops like Rewe or like Edeka, and then you just buy it and then you pick up your stuffs, some boxes, some places, where it's possible to pick up the goods, and many different products you could basically so distribution, it's definitely changing, and the way how the people are picking up the goods. Of course, there is also influence of the COVID, and people don't want to spend the time at the shops. They prefer to just pick it up. And then on the right chart, it's obviously showing, so where was the traffic? So obviously the traffic was growth was very significant in the groceries, which I just mentioned. Especially you see alcoholic beverages, so it's a strong trend. 30% of the people are searching and looking something at the grocery stores. Again, I think one of the biggest reason is they didn't want to go into the shops, but they wanted to just maybe get delivered their goods home or at somewhere else. Home and garden, obviously, people still are buying and taking care of their homes and gardens, and that's one of the trends. Growth was also in that industry. Also followed by books, music, electronic, and you could see that's obviously the strong trend at some industries for the web traffic. Web traffic always results later with engagements, results later with the purchase. So this is so far, this was a short presentation from my side, and now I would like to start with our discussion. So let me just us back so you could see our panelists. And my first question would be to ask our panelists about the general impression. So where we are today. Obviously, digital transformation, it's very strong. And I'm just even asking, do we have the digital transformation, or we are currently in the stage that we have the digital acceleration? Because we see that obviously many industry kind of started early, and now they're just kind of accelerating and adding and improving and enhancing some of the capabilities, processes, and people, to kind of leverage on what has been already prepared and done in the recent past. So, so who would like to start? Do we have anybody from our panelists who is willing to start the discussion?
Yeah, I don't mind to have a go, if that's all right with the others. Well, first of all, there are two things actually for the audience sake. There are two things you need to know about me. First of all, I'm quite a talker, so I can be quite long-winded. I do understand this is only a 30-minute panel discussion, so I'll try to be quick. And the second thing is I'm a marketing professional and I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs. So throughout the conversations today, you hear a lot of examples using marketing as an area of a topic for me to demonstrate how e-commerce and digital marketing kind of works, in my own opinion. So perhaps I'll start off. I think for me personally, as a marketing professional, I believe digital transformation is really about how you can apply the basic principles, the fundamental of marketing, and kind of ascending it from just an intuition, a gut feeling, to something that is systematic, that's tangible, with actions that can be repeated, success that can be replicated and scalable. And that's where the beauty of things like automation comes into play. And all this is to help brands, businesses, and marketers to make rational, informed decisions that are data-driven. I'll give everyone an example here. Let's say you're the owner of a grocery store. And generally in business, there is only finite of resource, and in your case, there's no difference. So within your current mode of operation, you can only afford, let's say, 3 full-time employees at any given time, and each managing a cashier or counter. And your business challenge is this: there's always a long line of queues in the shop during lunch hours with many pissed off and impatient customers waiting and waiting and waiting. So how can you quicken up the payment process and reduce the waiting time for your customers without adding more manpower? So this is where the science of data and things like marketing technology can help. So for instance, let's say if you go through your set of data and what your customer is buying, you discover that, say, during lunch hours, around 1/3 of your customers are really just buying 1 or 2 items at the very most, like a sandwich plus a drink perhaps. So what should you do then? So the answer would be, one of the answer would be, perhaps you can turn one of your 3 cashiers into an express lane. So that way, you're able to channel these customers into a quicker solution, thereby also freeing up capacity of existing resources to do much more. So that would be my own take.
Thank you, Ken. Anybody else would like to comment? Maybe Professor Srice, you didn't have a chance to say hello to the people. This is also a good chance that you say hello and then maybe comment on this.
Hello to everybody. I'm sorry I was a bit late. We have really short because our time is running fast. You asked about digital acceleration. In my view, I like the concept of digital. Basically, what we have experienced the last decade or so, digital and transformation, which is in essence culture. I'll give you one example why I think transformation is still appropriate as a acceleration is just the outside look of everything accelerates. And we learn from it, not just in marketing, everywhere. Pandemic taught us, among other stuff, was that, for example, 6% and more of high-paid jobs can be done online, and only 10% can be done online. So we have a transformation in that area. Technology, and we usually talk about digital, and we forget about. I can add a few, but let's open discussion by providing point by each of the panelists.
Okay, Professor Vadnjal, any comments from your side on this intro?
Yes, thank you, Damir, for the word. By the way, Damir, you have a very interesting question in the Q&A session. It's very relevant because in the end of the day, we are in the education business, right? Which to me is also quite heavily affected by this digitalization thing. I will take this very broadly. Actually, the question or thing, the question is good, but the thinking about this is somehow confusing me in the last, let's say, couple of years, and this confusion is even more catalyzed by the latest COVID situation, which of course accelerated a couple of things. But my question here is basically that generally nobody leads much discussion when digitalization is questioned on who is actually the beneficiary of this digitalization. And to me, the whole thing is a little bit ambiguous. I mean, to me, the whole thing started to actually make the processes on the supply side more efficient, right? Which actually leads also to a couple of bad things, which is probably losses of jobs, just to take one example. And on the other side, to increased profits of those who were on the right train all the time. On the other side, people who try to sell us anything through the digital channels, if I may say so, their words are full of phrases like user experience, customer experience, trying, I think, to tell us, as being now on consumer side, that they're doing good for us. But my big question is whether this experience, which is new, I admit this, but is it actually better than the old one? And I would just give an example of my 84 years old father, who is, for his age, a computer freak. But a couple of days ago, I asked him, why don't you use also the web banking for the things you have to do? And he said, are you stupid? And going to the bank to pay the bills and then meeting someone there, one of his colleagues who does the same, job, and retired people, they have time and they may have a beer together, or it depends what period of the day, or a coffee, have a chat. For him, going to the bank is a social event, which he would, cut himself off from this experience in order to enjoy, I don't know, some more time, which already has a lot, apart from, maybe myself, who are busy men. But this experience on the digital side also takes away some other experience, which is also, to me, of a great export. So for me, this all the digital thing is a big question. Who is the final beneficiary of this? And being a little bit of a socialist, if I may say so, I'm reserved. Let me put it this way.
But I think it's a very good question, very good point which you make. And I see the similar trend, to be honest. I see that many companies at the moment are trying to put more human inside, so, and they are building and thinking about the omni-channel journey. So obviously many companies are thinking about how do they sell the experience, not only the product, not only the service, but what is the experience they are going to deliver through the purchasing channel. And and then those touch points, which are mixed, in between the kind of physical touch points and digital points, makes the difference. Anything we could say about that? Additionally, how are the experience, maybe how are the experience in Hong Kong on the other side, let's say, of the world? Is anything you could add on that topic of the omni-channel journeys and the customer experience influence?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, perhaps I can, being the only representative on this panel from Asia, perhaps I can actually give everyone in the audience a quick summary and snapshot of the magnitude and scale of, let's say, the e-commerce market in this region. Just to give everyone a rough idea, the annual online sales in 2020 for China alone, was around 700 billion US dollars. And this is more than double of US, nearly 7 times more than the UK, which are ranked second and third in the world. So not surprisingly, of the top 8 largest e-commerce companies in the world, half of them actually comes from China. And most notably, there is Alibaba. And there are a few others who are lesser known outside of Asia, such as Meituan, Sunny.com, Sunning.com, and JD.com. And these names I've just mentioned has a kind of a annual revenue combined that is equivalent to the GDP of an entire European country, such as Portugal or Romania. It's quite amazing, isn't it? And the Chinese are so good at doing this, digital business, e-commerce, that they even invented a number of unofficial holidays just for online shopping. I'm not sure if anyone in the audience is familiar with November 11th, or they call it Double 11th, or the Bachelor's Day, which is to celebrate people who are not in relationships. And this is invented purely for online shopping. And this holiday has now become the largest physical retail and online shopping in the entire world. And the most recent one, which took place only a couple of weeks ago, Alibaba alone has sold 85 billion US dollars worth of goods on a single day. And with such massive success, I think many competitors, not just China, but across Asia, even Amazon are now kind of doing similar tactics to capitalize on this huge market and growth potential, which means there'll be more competition to these Chinese companies, and they'll need to step up the game kind of in order to maintain their dominance and market share, which I'm sure they will.
Ken, thank you. So I'm hearing, and very strong companies from the Western Europe, and some of them are also going to China, because they say if they are able to kind of compete and succeed in China, which is totally, booming in terms of the digital business and delivering best practices, global best practices, they say they'll be also good in Europe, other part of the world. So I understand what you're talking about, and I think it's really, really important that the companies are like comparing and understanding what is happening there and how they could adapt their industries and their business, to that. But let's move back, to something which I showed into my short presentation. So we have seen that there are different regions in the Europe, and some regions are really developed, like Western Europe or Northern Europe, and some regions are really speeding up, with the growth rates of more than 30%. So, Professor Srice, maybe you would like to comment. So what is happening at the Eastern Europe? What is happening? What really changed in the last year so that this part of the Europe of the world is changing and progressing so significantly?
Basically, what is changing is the culture of shopping, the habits, and what you mentioned before, experiences and lack of experiences during the pandemic. So people are more and more eager to experience things that they think are happening elsewhere. Just to relate very quickly to what Ken just mentioned, I was a visiting professor in Beijing and in Shanghai, and I have always been so impressed by the Chinese developments in all these digital areas. You may not know that Alipay is by far the best, and WeChat are by far the best lifestyle applications in the world, and very extensively used, and bring new culture, not only of shopping, but brings new lifestyle. And Southern and Eastern Europe, we are willing to catch up and even to be better. I like the concept of two companies from Croatia. One is Infobip. I was working with them. They are the unicorn company, one of the best in their field of interest, building infrastructure for digital commerce. And the other is Rimac, of course, and his advancements in electrical cars. And there are companies like that, not that well known, but aspiring to do great stuff. And the same is happening in the e-commerce area. We have small giants, and in a couple of months, maybe years, we'll be aware that we are progressing more than we expect.
Thank you very much. Very good comments. Thank you for that. I will also stay a bit more on these few charts which I showed. And Professor Vadnjal, I showed at one chart that two industries are really booming, in digital. So it's clothing industry and obviously the furniture industry. I think it's like surprising for me, So how is possible that now the people are buying so much of the furniture digitally? So, but what the other industries could learn and what they are really doing, to make such a shift and survive at the time the people couldn't participate and come to the showrooms, So what's changed with the people? What changed with the companies that this kind of growth appeared? And what could other industries learn?
I agree. To me, these two findings were a big surprise as well. Let me take a moment for clothing. This one is out of any question. I mean, an old-fashioned style guy like me prefers to go to the shop and try whether a piece of clothes fits you. And even more, I cannot imagine buying shoes, because you may have shoes and shoes and shoes, and it's no worse things than a pair of shoes that you cannot walk in them. So I can imagine, and that will be an interesting data, how much of the returning is present in this two industries, because people simply find out that they bought something that cannot use or is too uncomfortable to use or whatever. Speaking about clothing, and so I cannot comment on this one. It's really another planet for me. For the furniture, I would connect this also with the let me say taste or preferences in buying furniture. I mean, again, coming back to my parents, they use still the same furniture that I grew up beside. So I don't know, 50 years old furniture, which is there, and that was an old habit. So the furniture was as old as house, and today I believe that furniture is changed more often. You even have this market of second-hand furniture for people who cannot afford new ones. So I would say the rotation or circulation of furniture is much faster than it was a couple of decades ago. And buying a piece of furniture, now again, the data would be interesting whether people are buying, just single pieces in order to refresh their living environment, or they buy, the whole living room, the whole sleeping room or so, bedroom. I would say more people, they just buy themselves pieces to fresh up, a new chair, a new writing table, something to put the, a pot with the flower and this and stuff like this. But digging into this data would be interesting. But I would link this to probably the change of purchasing habits of people. But again, it is a surprise. I'm have no imagination to say more. As I said, I'm in a way I'm quite a conservative and try to put myself in the shoes of consumer. And for this viewpoint, I have no better answer than the one I provided just.
I think you mentioned for the closing, it's, I mean, I have two teenage daughters, so I see that almost every day. So they're buying definitely online, and you mentioned it, so it's so easy to return it. It's very safe. They build a safe environment. The technology is good. There is some artificial intelligence things, augmented reality things, which you could use, into choosing the shoes, into choosing the clothes. And I think the main point, as you mentioned, good technology, good process, return policies, warranties, which I think is really helping. I have seen also, for example, one application from IKEA, which is basically you take the mobile phone, you select the piece of the furniture, you come into your room, you just look at it through the mobile, and then this, it shows you how it looks into your space, So it's simple for the people, and again, I mean, there was no other choices, So, and I think this example shows exactly that, some traditional industries are also possible to go through the transition, so digital transition. And if those industries could go, I think that all other industries could go too. And you see that for some industries which we could never even imagine, it's already there.
Yeah. Let me, if you allow me, just add one thing which I also find interesting. In the field of these small purchases, small items, I can observe that there is also quite some room for speculation. So what you do is you say to the seller, I want to return my my mouse because for whatever reason I don't like it, and give me money back. And they would say, well, we are paying you back your money, but just keep the mouse because the cost of sending back would be too high. And I know people are speculating on this. I mean, they know which retailers actually have this kind of cost structure that they say, oh, well, it's just too expensive to receive back items which are under 50. So people are grabbing the opportunity to get actually not some cheap but some free stuff eventually.
Building the confidence, building the trust, building the confidence that nothing could happen bad to me.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah,
I think
exactly.
sometimes the companies are investing into paying lots of money in advertising. Sometimes they invest into building the trust with the customers, which I think the last one is the case. So I had a similar experience, and they just say, keep your goods, we give you money back, and they do it in one day. It's unbelievable how fast this process works. Okay, so let's move to one of my next questions. I would like to spend some time talking about the data. So Ken started and he mentioned about the data, importance of the data, how the companies are managing the data. So is it that the data are new oil? Because, today, the biggest companies, the companies that worth the most on the markets are the one which basically have lots of data to play with. You know, they use, and especially they have their own data, first party data. And so how is with the data? How is with the customer protection? How will be with the data when we will have a cookie-less world? Because we know that 2023 Google is going to pull back the third-party data because of the cookie policies. So who would like to start? Maybe Ken, you already mentioned something, so I really would like maybe you start with the data.
Absolutely. I'm actually I have a strong kind of position about what data is and how it should be used. I think when it comes to data, the first thing that people always talk about is, oh, we need big data. So allow me to use this opportunity to clarify, if I may. I'm sure most people in the audience have heard of Excel or the Excel spreadsheet, correct? On an Excel spreadsheet, you can currently input up to 1 million cells per rows and per columns, and that's a huge amount of data. So what I'm trying to say is, if you can't even use up the maximum limit of an Excel, then you're nowhere near big data. So going back to your question about what is data, the value of data, or whether we are capturing or tracking the right data, I think it varies from business to businesses, depending on your individual business needs and objectives. It's also a matter of strategic decisions as to how you wish to utilize, apply, analyze your data and information. But generally speaking, you can split it into 3 levels. That's the descriptive analytics, there's predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics. So let's start with descriptive, which is the most basic and elementary level. In simple words, descriptive data are used for categorizations, meaning you can segment different data and information into different types of groups and categories. So for example, you've got age group, interest group, frequency of purchases, household income, etc., etc. And you can easily turn this data into charts and diagrams, meaning they can be visualized. And then you have predictive analytics. And this is what a lot of the big tech companies are now doing and investing in. And they are collecting lots and lots of data, most notably linked with human behaviors and cognitive thinking. And the data will be fitted into things like AI and machine learning algorithms. And the objective here is to collect, massive amount of data for learning purposes. And over time, your AI and machines will hopefully be able to make accurate predictions. And then lastly, you've got prescriptive analytics. And to me, that's kind of the ultimate and the most difficult to achieve, which is how you can make decisions based on inputs from descriptive and predictive analysis. So long story short, I think there is no right or wrong data or what to collect. It's just a matter of preference and what your business is trying to analyze, and that's in line with your business objectives and goals. And in terms of customer data protection, well, unfortunately, I think the tech industry as a whole, the reputation is mixed when it comes to data protection and responsible data use. So let's say, for example, Facebook has been on the wrong side of the news for a number of times, especially recently for leaking over 500 million users' data on the internet by a hacker. And other social media channels have also been accused of using consumer data in unethical ways, most notably in the recent US election. So politics aside, I think the general sentiment is that most people are not aware that their online footprint is being monitored, tracked, and the data has been collected. So Google third-party cookies is a prime example. So basically, third-party cookies are used by, in the past, right? Third-party cookies are used by ad companies to track you as you go around the internet, building a profile of you and your interests based on the sites you have visited, and using that to send advertisement to you. Google's third-party cookies are on millions of websites, so feeding the company a ton of information about the sites you have visited, which powers part of its massive advertising business. But the public is now becoming more aware of the privacy issues these days, and regulators are passing more privacy laws. So one of the major change of Google's starting next year is to remove these so-called third-party cookies. So for example, the Chrome browser, which most of us use here, will keep track of users' browsing habits across the web. But then they will place the user in various audience clusters or groups based on your habits. And advertisers will then target these ads to groups and clusters rather than individual users in the past. So technically, Google can still deliver target ads to you, but it will do so in a more anonymous and less creepy way. So that's been one of the basic notable changes to data protection within the industry.
Thank you very much, Ken. It was really kind of detailed and good, so the people could understand those changes. And I will move to another topic because I think we are a bit short with the time. And I think we are here, school education. We are speaking about education. We are very close to that. So, Professor Srice, so what is with the people? Do we have enough people around which are able to cope with these changes? Or there is a need to kind of accelerate the educational systems, you know, to kind of come closer to technology, come closer to the customer, new needs, requirements, behaviors, you know. So how do you look at that, and how would be in the future?
Well, basically, the education that we are surrounded with is still a Renaissance model-based system, which means that we are teaching people different stuff that is not really useful in real life. I have performed several studies showing that on the average, 90% of what people learn at university level is never used in real life, which means that educational institutions are a huge garbage producing institutions, so to say, which means that their output is not very useful. I work for one, and I dislike that type of conclusion, but we must be aware that education is really lagging behind. Today, we can learn more from our kids. Usually kids would say, Google is everything I need for good education. YouTube is enough for me. My teachers are less competent than what I can find on the web, and whatever problem I have, I can solve it in the digital world. But let me just very quickly go back to the previous question, because I think I can tie the two together. We must educate people, as, for example, as far as data are concerned, to understand what is here, the principle and the danger and the problem. You have probably all watched the Social Dilemma discussing the problems with social networks. I keep telling my 4 kids and my students, there is always a choice. You can be either a subject in the digital world or an object. Whenever you're an object, it means that you're a target of a marketing campaign. Your data are being used for some purpose. You're being offered something that you may not want. So whenever you're an object, just run away from it. And we are surrounded by systems turning us into objects. If you're a subject, it means that you are dealing with digital world in such a way to use it to solve your own problem. So you have a problem, and whatever you search, wherever you go, whatever you do in the digital world, basically you address your own issue. And if we educate people to look at the world from this subject-object point of view, they can be completely different users. There are other points that I could make here, but in principle, our educational systems should really change dramatically. It's not just a change in curriculum, it's a change in essence. We need digital, we need cultural change, we need infrastructural change, and mindset change is the key. We are approaching the world from the wrong point of view, and kids are slowly teaching us what should be done, but elderly people, we are slow learners.
Thank you very much, Professor Srice. So I think, Lydia, we are quite close. We still have like 5 minutes, and is it through? Like 5 minutes we have to the end?
Yes, please. We have 5 minutes more, and I would like to start with Q&A, if you agree. So
sure.
Perhaps, yeah, I would like to include our guests, our participants. So please pay attention to Q&A.
Okay.
Thank
Here
you.
we are. So we have people who would ask something directly, or I have to read the
Yes,
comment?
yes, you can read it. Is it
Okay, so
visible to you? Yeah.
I see the question about digital transformation at the new startups. How is possible to make it more effective? Startups using the digital transformation. Its question is coming from Satya Narayan. So anybody wants to pick it up? So digital transformation on new startups, how to make it more effective?
Perhaps I'll have a go then. I think to me, digital transformation is really about how businesses can employ and make use of digital technologies so they can do more with less and to make better and smarter decisions, smarter predictions, smarter decisions, and smarter interventions. So in other words, to be a smarter version of your current self and to be smart in the application of digital technologies to business problems. So that could encompass anything from CRM, your customer relationship management, your product information management system, PIM, to platforms like Salesforce and ERP. I think companies or startups can be smart when they can start make use of these digital technologies and data to solve their pressing needs. So for example, the ability to harness information and communication technology, the IoT, the Internet of Things, and getting these insights into data to actually develop and adapt smarter applications that make your day-to-day business more efficient and seamless. So to answer your question, so what are some of the digital transformations, or how should we speak about it, or what should be considered? I always like to tell my students that in the next foreseeable decade, I think there are 4 new letters you need to know, or like to call it the new A, B, C's, and D's. So they are A for artificial intelligence, B for blockchain, C for cloud, and D for data. So they will be your new A, B, C, and Ds. So try to learn about it, understand it, and even better, be an expert in it.
Thank you very much, Ken, for answering that. So I think we are very close, and I think we need some kind of wrap-up closing. So I would invite either Professor Vadnjal or Professor Srice maybe to say a few words about, like, visionary few words, what is next, what is coming. We see that in the industry, for example, there are big changes, there are discussions about, is this internet, the internet that will exist in the future? Is it the metaverse, which Facebook changed the name into Meta, so obviously virtual reality, everything is mixed, so it's getting very, very kind of different, so gaming industry is progressing and bringing all those kind of abilities, capabilities for another change, in industry. So where we are, where is the future, so how we would see the digital business in 5 years? Maybe closing words from Professor Vadnjal or Professor Srice.
Okay, I'll try very shortly. I'll refer to the last question, how startups should apply whatever digital. I would go back to the roots and actually try to answer what this is all about. And it would go like startups, it's entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is about innovation. And innovation is not only about something new, but also about upgrading something existing. So in any of the part of the production process, if I may say, in the old-fashioned way, some kind of digital input or improvement or upgrade can be applied. Now it depends whether the market, in the end of the day, would take this or not. On the other hand, what Professor Srice well said, being subject or object, probably we are all object of the digitalization in a certain amount of time spent on the media, on social media, if not other things. And I think important thing is there to be a critical object, if I may say so, and listening about all these trends. I mean, we can start now listing which trends in the digital field were forecasted 5 years ago, but never really happened. So what will happen? Nobody knows. I truly believe it is connected to some sort of big bang, which will happen somewhere put some seeds in the ground, and then a new technology would go and everything that comes along in that direction. For example, I came from banking. 5 years ago, everybody was forecasting that all traditional banks are dead because of, N26 and Revolut and guys like this, and it is not that. And these digital banks, from the performance side of view, they're not performing well, making big losses. So these forecasts were obviously quite wrong, looking from 5 years perspective. Now we shall see what will happen in 5 years. So it is a hard question. I really don't want to look into some crystal ball and say something which may turn out to be a complete stupidity in 5 years' time, or even sooner. That's from my side.
Thank you very much. Professor Srice, please, closing words.
Since we don't really have so much time, I will just add one sentence. The future can be looked at from 2 points of view. One, to expect what is going to happen and to adjust. And the other view is to make it happen. And I would suggest my students and the companies I consult and myself and my kids to try to envision what they would like to take place in the future and try to fight for it, not to wait that something takes place. So the future will be a nice and interesting and developing and make us grow if we really want to do it. Otherwise, we'll be the victims of the future because we'll have to adjust to it.
Thank you, Professor Srice. Can anything on your side, just the closing words, maybe one sentence or two?
I'll just add one interesting point about metaverse. For me, I think metaverse has been around for a while and it's already in use. But the question is just how far and how real we can make this virtual world become, to a point where one day there's even a chance for someone to achieve immortality. Immortality meaning they can store all their memories and cognitive functions onto a cloud database and be connected to a metaverse. And providing they get unlimited supply of data and storage, and you can afford to do so, he or she can potentially, to live forever. It's a very interesting prospect at the same time, very, very scary.
I'm really happy to finish with such a futuristic, way of thinking. So let the future show us, so I'm sure it will be somewhere in the middle. And so thank you very much for all the guests, so all the panelists. This is Lydia and the audience and the people around the world, from us for the moment, from the time being. So thank you very much. So Lydia, getting back to you.